our servers, and we had them politely humming right behind Catherine's head, and it's very loud. So we ended up putting it in the closet against the wishes of IT.
Recording in progress.
Okay, good evening. I think we can kick it off here. Thank you for coming to the Town Ways to Water Assessment Project meeting number 2. If anybody was here last time, just FYI, this is the same meeting, just a second opportunity for people to come if they couldn't make the first one. My name's Dave Condon. I'm the Director of Natural Resources for the Town of Yarmouth. Today I am joined by Gemma from Horsley Witten Group. She's the consultant that we've hired for this assessment. Joe from Conservation, Connor from Engineering, Catherine from Natural Resources, and Victoria from Natural Resources. Julian Mallett, Chair of our Waterways Committee, who I forgot to introduce last time, so Julian as well. Just a quick overview of the plan tonight. We are simulcast on Zoom, although there's nobody on there, but that's why the microphone and all that. So I'll give a quick overview of what the project is, what we're trying to accomplish, how we got here, and then Gemma will go over our survey that we're hoping that you people will all fill out either today or at home, trying to gather input. That's the whole point of this project, is to gather public input and identify how we can treat these ways to water in the future. So a quick background on, again, how we got here. Historically in the town of Yarmouth, the ways to water were kind of unknown, like whose responsibility they were. They're not a road, so that wasn't really a DPW thing. It's not on the water, so it's not really a DNR thing. It's not conservation trails or something. It's not a conservation thing. We all kind of were doing one of these, not knowing exactly who was in charge of the town ways to water. That all changed a couple years ago. We had a couple of sites that were in need of some repairs, so everybody sort of got together, DPW, town admin, natural resources, my predecessor Bill, and determined that DNR would take care of the town ways to water because it's our user group. And with that, we tried to identify what we could fix, what was broken, we had a couple of immediate repairs like, railings and that kind of stuff that we fixed right away when we first were handed the town ways. So naturally, in natural resources fashion, we jumped in and chose the hardest, most complicated project first. And that was the Driftwood Lane, Cranberry Lane set of stairs that go down to Fallon's Pond. That one kind of jumped up onto our radar because the stairs were in disrepair, they were unsafe, we had to put up a closed sign, which of course the neighborhood was up in arms, rightfully so. So we identified that site as something we tried to repair. So looking for funding, we went to the Community Preservation Committee with an application for, we got a few prices, and we put together an application for repairs to Driftwood, again, being the stairs, the walkway, potentially a gangway and a float like had been there historically. We got to the CPC, presented to them, and to their credit, they asked a very good question. They said, how do you know that that is the town way in the most need of repair? To which we said, well, we don't. We don't know. We know it needs repairs, but we don't know that it's the worst one in town. And again, CPC generally doesn't like funding studies or assessments, but in this case, they were like, well, we can't in good faith give you a bunch of money to repair something if we don't know that that's the one in the most need. So we withdrew our application and came back to their next meeting and applied for funding for a project like this. The plan here is we will, with Horsley Witten, our consultant, we will identify first all the town ways to water. And a town way to water is, the definition we came up with is a publicly accessible water access point. So again, a long way of saying a town property that the public can access the water. So here's a couple of examples. We have a boat ramp. We would have an unimproved, just like dead-end road that ends at the water, like a town landing or a fishing pier. Those are all examples of a town way to water. Your classic town way, if there was such a thing, would be an unimproved, a road that just terminates at the water. There's a couple of boulders, a no parking, or a handicap parking sign or a no parking sign, and then the water. And that's your historic, your classic way to water. But there are others throughout town. Believe it or not, we have identified over 60 sites, which is like mind-blowing that we have that many. We're very lucky to be, in the town of Yarmouth because, even, towns on either side of us don't have nearly this many access points. And again, we have everything from a boat ramp to a set of stairs to a dock to a fishing pier. These are all things that we have. And again, to CPC's credit, we didn't have a good answer for why we were attacking Driftwood first, other than we knew it was broken. So the first part of this project is to identify all the sites, which we're getting pretty far into. Horsley Witten is doing a legal access summary, which they're doing the deed research on each property, deed research on the butters if need be, to identify basic property lines and confirm the town does in fact own these sites, because there are, believe it or not, a couple that we thought were slam dunks that maybe the town doesn't actually own. But that goes the other way as well. There are a couple that we've identified that are publicly owned but marked private. So we're going to end up somewhere in the 60 to 65 range of sites in the end. I think we'll hopefully take back one or two that might be marked incorrectly. And as far as the other ones, I guess we'll see how it all shakes out. But again, so identify all the sites, determine that the town does in fact own them. And then from then, it'll be a conditions assessment of each site, a quick overview through Horsley Witten staff and town staff to identify what is currently there. Again, is it a boat ramp? Is it a set of stairs? Is it just a dead-end road? Is there signage? Is there parking? Is there a pier? What shape is the pier in? So identify what the conditions assessment is of each site. So again, Horsley Witten and our staff will be visiting every single site in the middle of summer when they're actually being used and see what's actually going on there. Part of those site visits will be interacting with people who are there. They'll be documenting what they see for uses. Is this people launching kayaks? Are they shellfishing? Are they surf casting? Are they using the dinghy to get out to their mooring? I mean, what is going on at this site? Are they using it as a beach? Which I'd like to get ahead of and say that these townways are not beaches. These are, we at the town has a bunch of beaches. They're not part of this survey. They're a separate entity. But we understand that some people do use a townway as a beach, but that's not its intended purpose. Its intended purpose is for the stuff I mentioned, the fishing, the shellfishing, getting to your boat, launching a kayak. That's the intended purpose of a townway. If there's somebody on a beach chair, we're not going to throw them out as long as they're not impeding the intended use of the property. So Horsley Witten and our staff will identify what's actually happening out there, talk to the users that are out there if they have questions, and document all the uses that we see. From there, Horsley Witten will put together, the next step of that is public input. So I presented to the select board a couple weeks ago an overview of the project. We had our first public meeting on May 29th or whatever, our second public meeting tonight, where we're trying to gather input from you all, hopefully, more importantly, direct you towards our survey where we can quantify all the data. So Gemma will go through it in a minute, but the survey and our website and how to get to the survey and all that stuff she'll go through here in a minute. But the survey will be a major part of this. So each site will be ranked on all sorts of criteria. That's the uses, the popularity, the condition, the public input. That all is going to get wrapped into a final report that they're going to produce. Again, you'll see the timeline and the schedule here in a minute. To basically hand natural resources almost a handbook of sorts for all the townways to water. It'll identify what resources are there, what the condition is, and then they'll identify 3 sites that we determine are in the worst shape, if you will, and they'll do some preliminary design / engineering kind of stuff just to see where we should go next in this process and what we should ask for money for repairs or improvements or whatever the case may be. And again, I don't want to get too balled up on what sites we're going to rank and improve and spend money on, because the vast majority of these are unimproved, and the improvement could be a no parking sign here, or park on this side of the street, or putting a couple lines, or putting a trash can. So a lot of these are going to be low dollar items that the town can just do and will make that improvement on day one. But some of them will, obviously the ones with structures and amenities will be bigger projects that they will rank as part of the project. So that's the basic overview. I'll hand it to Gemma here in a second, and she'll go through the survey, the website, how to get to the website, and then I'll open up to any questions about the project itself. I don't want to answer questions about site-specific things, but we'll open it up to any questions about the project, and then we'll just kind of let everybody mingle. Gemma has the maps all around the room here, some blown-up versions so you can get a little closer and see each site individually. And if you have any questions about sites at that point, we have enough town staff here that will spread out and answer site-specific. But when I open it up to everybody here, hopefully just we'll stick to about the project itself.
Dave, do you want to talk about two more things? These are draft list of sites.
Yes.
And just the mapping in general, like the deliverable of this project for the mapping.
Yes, thank you, yes. Yes, you'll notice that every one of these says draft on it. And so please, these are draft maps. None of these are finalized yet. If you see one on there that you don't think belongs, please bring it to our attention. If you know of one that you think should be on there, bring it to our attention. None of these are final. The legal access summary isn't complete yet. They made a lot of progress on it, but truth be told, I have a list in my email that I'm supposed to go through and decide which ones we should be dropping that maybe don't meet the criteria or the town doesn't actually own. So again, these are a draft. And the second part of Gemma's comment there is that another deliverable from this project will be an interactive GIS-based map, which you can almost kind of see a preview of as part of the survey, but there'll be a map that will that they'll produce, will be turned over to the town. The town's GIS or IT department will host it on the town website, and there'll be an interactive map where you can see all the sites marked on the town map, zoom in on the one you're thinking about, click on it, find out more info, and the town will maintain that list going forward once the project is over. That was actually kind of a bonus that we weren't planning on, but it's such a great idea that we were happy that they were able to produce that, and it was an add-on to the original project. So anyway, here's Gemma from Horsley Witten to talk about the survey and the website.
Great, thanks. I almost feel like I don't need this. All right, so I'm talking about the public survey part of this project. So we want to hear about your experiences on how you use these sites. How do you use them? What challenges and successes do you have? And what improvements would you like to see to help improve access? So the examples of like the information that we're looking for include, quote, it's confusing whether this is a town way to water. There's no signage. It's just not clear to me that this is a public access point. Another example is there's too much vegetation covering the access path, so I can't get to the actual water. So that's the kind of information and feedback that we're looking for through this public survey. So we put this together so it's online, so anyone can go and fill out the survey for one site, for as many sites as you are interested in providing feedback for. Right, so to get to the survey, you can scroll down through this website, or you can...
Probably should start on the town website.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Do you want to actually show that, because you're a little bit better about that? Go ahead.
So just to show you how to get to it, if you go to the Town of Yarmouth website, just yarmouth.ma.us, and then we go over to Government, Departments, and scroll down until you find Natural Resources. And it's the very first tab here on the left, the Ways to Water Assessment. Click on that. This just talks about general overview of the project, what we're doing, how we got here, and a link to the website and survey right here.
And also it's on a QR code, and on each of those maps there's a little QR code at the bottom that you can access it. If you scan it with your phone, you can access it. You can also just, I think, Google search Yarmouth Ways to Water, and eventually you'll get to this website. So there's a couple different options there. So how do you interact with this survey? So you can go ahead and interact exactly on this website that we have here. You can see the map and the form on the right. You can also pop this out into a whole new window. So it's much bigger, especially if you're working on like a tablet or your iPhone or your Android, you might want to be able to pop it out. This map is interactive, so I can I can click on it, I can pan around, I can zoom in, and as I zoom in, the site names start to pop up as well as the numbers for each of the site. That's just for us to help organize ourselves. There's no magic to those numbers at all. So zoom in, zoom out, pan around. I can also use this search toolbar up here to search by street name, water body, or if I know what the site name is, I can also search by the site name. So I'm just going to demo that. I really like Fallon's Pond, so I'm going to go ahead and start typing in Fallon's Pond, if I can spell it right. Hit enter, and it looks like I have a site that's called Fallon's Pond Road. I also have a water body that's Fallon's Pond, and then I have the road name. So I'll click on Fallon's Pond, the water body, and that zooms me to my Fallon's Pond on the map. So that's just one way that you can kind of search around for a particular site that you're interested in. And then once you're ready to fill out the form, say you have the site that you want to provide feedback for, you have to come over to the right-hand side here, and you have to put in what the site name is. So in this case, let's just pick Fallon's Pond Road because I'm familiar with that site. I can either scroll down the list and select it from there, or if I actually start typing in the name, it's hard to see. There we go. If I start typing in the name, it pops up, and then I go ahead and select it. Again, you cannot submit the form unless you have a site selected, so just make sure you do that. And then you get into the questions. First, we're asking, how do you use the site? This is a select all that apply. So fishing, car top boating, sailing, shell fishing, scenic viewing, other is a category. If you select other, there is a box that you can input exactly what you're doing. And then we provide a question that asks, how do you see others using the site? So when you're there, enjoying this way to water, what do you see other people doing? It's just to get us a temperature of what kind of uses we're seeing at these sites. So again, this is a select all that apply, and there is an other which has that open field that you can type in. We ask next, how popular do you consider this site in terms of the number of users? From not popular being the 1 all the way to very popular being the 5. Again, this is just really to help us take the temperature as to how popular some of these sites are. I think the town has a good idea about that, but we want to hear from you as well. How would you like to use this site in the future? So in other words, if there's something that you cannot do right now or you're not comfortable doing there today, what is that? And what would you like to be able to do? And that's just a kind of an explain all open text box, so you can type that in. Next, we want to understand what successes and challenges you experience with this site. So what do we mean by a success? An access success is, an example of that is, there is clear signage. I know that this is a town way to water. An example of an access challenge would be, there's no safe access path for me to get from my car or where I'm walking from down to the water. That would be a challenge. So we ask, what challenges do you have in accessing this site, if any? And again, this is a select all that apply. We've created some buckets of where we think some of those challenges and successes could fall into: public safety, environmental, accessibility, and so forth. And there is another other category. So again, you can select other and provide us that information. We also ask that you describe those challenges to us. What exactly are you seeing? What are those challenges, so that we can get a better idea about that? And then, what are these successes? What makes it easy to access and keeps you bringing back to that site? The same categories are there as they were in the challenges question, and then we ask you to further describe those successes for us. We then move into I know we're almost done with the survey, don't worry. We then move into do you have any feedback about potential improvements that you would like to see for this site? So how would you like to see access improved or maintained for the future? And do you have any concerns about the impacts of increasing public access to the site? So for example, you may be in a butter and you have a driveway nearby, and you may be concerned that if access is increased to the site, your driveway may be blocked by people parking over the access. We added a section here for general use of ways to water. This was a great suggestion from our first public meeting about just generally having the town be able to collect information high level about how people use ways to water across the town. So you only have to fill this out once, and then you can skip this if you're filling out more than one form. So we ask, how many of the town ways to water sites have you visited in the past? If you've lived here for 50 years, I want to hear about all of the sites that you've been to across the 50 years that you've lived here. How many town ways to water sites do you visit regularly? So we kind of put a limiter here as multiple times a year is what we want to hear. Do you visit 3 sites? Do you visit 25 sites? We just want to get, again, a temperature of how many of the sites are being used. How frequently do you visit a town way to water? Is it once per month, every day? And what form of recreation do you participate in? And this is, again, a select all that apply. And finally, to round out the survey, this is optional. If you want to provide your personal information, you can, your name, your email address, and your street name, but it is optional. You do not have to. And this is just in case you want any follow-up or if you would like to be sort of aware of any project-related communication. Don't forget to hit submit. That's very important. And then it will prompt you after you hit the submit button. If you'd like to fill out another survey for another site, you can go ahead and do that through a link that it will provide you. So hopefully fairly straightforward. Any questions on the survey or any of the information that Dave presented on the sites, or on the project, sorry?
You said you're going to be going around and, sorry.
Just to keep it on the thing, if you wouldn't mind.
You said you're going to be going around and checking all these sites during the summer, on and off. What if your site is inaccessible or does not have, even if you can get to it, you can't utilize what's there because it's non-existent? So, like, my question is, like, well, in that case, you won't be seeing multiple people there enjoying that access point because it's inaccessible. So
Right, well,
how does
that-
that determine in your survey, in your mind, what?
Well, I mean, we don't anticipate there'll be people at every site by any means, and if we get there and the Horsley Witten staff and our staff can't access it, that'll be the very first thing that we take note of. I don't know that we're going to find that many. I mean, I think just based on the town ways that we're all aware of, I don't anticipate there'll be any that are completely inaccessible. Unless you have one in mind, we can talk about it after.
The
But
first one you were trying to fix.
Driftwood?
The stairs are still lopsided and they're not in great condition, and the dock is totally gone missing, and you can get off and walk about 6 feet in the muck now that it's raining to get to the water if you so choose. But there's really no easy, accessible way to utilize that town way to water the way that it stands now. So I wouldn't anticipate seeing people actively using that site, and I want to know how, if you're going to be checking and collecting information, how you would use that information. Like, does that become one of the more top ones? Does that become somewhere in the middle?
Sure. So I think that's why we have public engagement, right? That's why we're here tonight, because we want to, we can only, of course, see so much when we go out there in July or August, whatever. We can only see so much. It is what it is. That's why we have these public engagement sessions where hopefully we can direct you to the survey. You can direct, I presume you live near there, you direct your neighbors to the survey, and the more input we get on each site, the better we understand what's going on there, whether or not we see anybody there that day or not, whether or not we see someone trying to carry a kayak through the muck or not. We we will get a better idea based on your input, based on what you tell us tonight. But again, hopefully you fill out the survey and encourage your neighbors to do the same. That's the whole point of the public input. And that'll be every site, not, of course, not just Driftwood. Any other questions about the project as a whole? Sure.
How long will you be gathering the public input before you summarize the results?
Yes, sorry, we skipped that part on the website. My apologies. Sorry, my apologies. So this is our timeline of the whole project. We're really just kind of in the beginning phases of it now. We've been, the last 4 or 5 months, we've been kind of planning how this is all going to shake out, identifying the criteria that we're going to rank the sites on, developing the survey, Horsley Witten developing the interactive map, developing the website. So that's kind of all already happened to get us to where we are now in June, where we have our 2 public meetings, which again, thank you for attending. And then July, I think we picked some dates in the mid to late July where we'll be doing our site visits. Wrapping that up by mid to late August, and then that's when Horsley Witten starts crunching the numbers and figuring out where we stand and identifying or ranking all the sites, of course with input from our staff and from the Waterways Committee, ranking the sites and figuring out what that's going to look like, coming up with a draft report in the fall. When the plan is when we're like 85, 90% completion for the report, I'll come back to the select board. Of course, it'll be on their agenda for weeks ahead of time so everybody knows when it's happening. And we will present our 90%-ish report in case there's any last minute input that we want to try and sneak in there before the final report towards the end of the year. And to answer your question, public survey is open now and will remain open right up until the end of the summer. So we're going to, ideally people will keep seeing it. We have flyers at maybe not all, but a lot of the townways, a lot of the hotspot townways, we've hung up laminated flyers with the QR code to our website. And again, we're just trying to drive people to that survey, again, that will remain open until the end of the summer. Any other questions about the project?
You've identified some waste to water that are actually public parks, and some public parks are supposed to be maintained by DPW, and they're not being, passive parks are not being maintained by DPW. So how are you going to get them maintained in the future is my question.
Sure, so that's a great question, and that's kind of what started this whole thing, is who the heck is going to maintain these things? And that's where it came to DNR. I do anticipate that there will be some that are above our pay grade of being able to maintain like long term. I think through this assessment we'll identify, again, some of the quick fixes like cutting vegetation, hanging up a couple signs, striping some lines, that kind of stuff, again, we can do real quick. The sites that are improved and we have to do repairs, that kind of stuff, I think that DNR will be doing that as well through the capital process or CPC or whatever the funding mechanism will be. DNR will be doing that. As far as any parks that are, again, I can only think of a couple that kind of fit that criteria that are current parks that are on the water and may or may not be a townway to water, or certainly they are a waterfront structure or facility. Who maintains those long term? If they're supposed to be parks right now or DPW, I mean, I guess I don't know which site specifically. We can talk about that, but
Chasebrook Park.
so that one I honestly don't.
Maintained in 7 years since America cleared it out.
Well, I think that's about to get redone, isn't it? Yeah. So I guess maybe we could talk about site specific after this group session here. But these two guys
Not
here.
going to do anything for 2 years until it gets redone.
Yeah,
It'd be 9
yes,
years that it hasn't been taken.
potentially. But well, can we talk about site specific after the whole group here? Any other about the project itself?
Do you have any time frame for when either it will begin, construction-wise, if they need the construction, or how long it's going to take for all of these 63 waterway places to be completed?
The question was, when are we going to start construction, and how long will it take to fix, or whatever ends up being the solution for all 63 sites? We don't have that answer. We're at step 1, which is identifying the sites, identifying the condition of the sites. So when we're putting shovels in the ground is after this process. That's why this process exists, so we don't go full head on into a site that may not be in the most need. Any other questions about the project as a whole?
I just have one thing. I think this project only works, obviously, with the public input. So the more this gets out, the better this project is going to be in the long run. So if there are ways that you as the public feel like we should be better publicizing the survey, I would love to hear them because it's important. And this is ultimately going to set our future up in the town for access. So this is a major step. And I just think that your input is what is going to drive this entire project moving forward.
All right, so I'm going to turn to Gemma one more time. She'll explain kind of what we're looking for with the mingling. But again, you have conservation, engineering, natural resources, and Gemma from Horsley Witten. We may not have all the answers, but we can try and talk site-specific if there are questions. Bear with us, we kind of got to rotate around. But I encourage everybody to make a lap around the room, look at the zoomed-in maps of the sites that may or may not be of interest to you, and again, ask us any questions. And again, Gemma's got a little plan for color-coding everything.
Yeah, so this is the interactive portion of tonight. What we've done is this full map of all of the Yarmouth wastewater. We've split up into 4 blown up figures around the room. And what we would like you to do is if everyone could come up and grab a dot, it doesn't matter what color the dot is, grab one and put it on the circle, the numbered circle of your favorite site, the site that you love to go to or go to frequent often. The Post-it notes, we've got green and we've got orange. Green is if you have something really nice to say or good to say about a site, we want to hear it. Put the number of the site. So if it's site number 47, put 47 and what you have to say that's good about the site. Challenges or areas for improvement are orange. Same. If you have something to say about site number 47, make sure you put 47 and then what you have to say that needs improvement or challenges for that site. This is the interactive portion of the public meeting, but really what we want you all to do is go online and take the public survey. That's going to be the place where we really try and collate all the data that's coming in from our public meetings, from people that are logging in at home. This is nice, and we will definitely record this as part of the record of the project, but really what we want you to do is go and do the public survey. Does that make sense? And as you're floating around thinking about, the good things, the areas for improvement, you can talk to one of the many town officials here tonight. Yes?
So I do not have to float around the room, and I can just go home and do it comfortably from my desk. I'm right there.
Yes. You can do that if you like, but if you have a site-specific question, now is the time to talk to town staff about it. Oh, yes, thank you, Catherine. If you want help with filling out the public survey online, we have a couple computers here tonight, and we will gladly walk you through that process. So if anyone wants to do that with us, we are happy to do that.
Are you bringing on any source of social media?
It is on Facebook. So we have our own town. Sorry. We have our own division Facebook that we regularly maintain. We can also ask the town to share it over the town website. But our Facebook site is up-to-date information, and typically we put it out right when we have it.
And the only other thing I was going to add, we have computers tonight, and again, this survey is open until the end of the summer. So if it's August 1st and you want to fill it out again for a different site and you're fumbling through it, just call DNR and we can either walk you through it over the phone or come into the office and we can make it happen. We want the input, so however we need to get it, we will.
So I do have one more question. So I'm going online, I'm going to do this, thank you. I couldn't come up with the word. I do that for one site and then log on and then go to the second site, so
Correct. The only way that we can keep it straight per site
Got it.
is you kind of have to fill it out for each site, which
And you don't have to answer all the questions.
Right.
So they're not all
I mean, even one of the.
They're not
right.
mandatory. The only one that's mandatory is the site name, and then after that, you can fill out as many questions, answer as many as that you want to.
Got it, okay. All right.
All right, so if there's no other questions on the project as a whole, feel free to mingle. Thank you.
Recording stopped.
Don't lose it. It's kind of small.